How does a compass work? When we use a compass, the magnetized needle swings to align itself with the Earth's own magnetic field. And while there are a few degrees of difference between magnetic north and true north, which is the planet's north pole, we can always rely on a compass to help get us home when we're lost. And right now, we feel terribly lost. The psychiatrist Dr. Jonathan Shea coined the term moral injury. It came from his work with Vietnam veterans and their post-traumatic stress, but it's different from PTSD. Moral injury is what happens when, one, there has been a betrayal of what is morally correct, two, by someone who holds legitimate authority, and three, in a high-stakes situation. And one of the reasons that we feel literally disorientated right now, as well as disempowered, is that we are in a profound state of moral injury. Our most dearly held values are being violated. Our internal morality is increasingly and chaotically at odds with our external reality, and we become enraged even as we feel powerless. We brace ourselves every morning to read the next set of headlines, knowing that they will start that cycle of rage and powerlessness all over again, but not being able to turn away. I deeply believe that the Torah that our ancestors heard at Sinai is still transmitting a stream of wisdom directly into our lived experience. So it cannot be a coincidence that right now we are reading Parashat Mishpatim. Or let me put it this way. The Hebrew words for north, tzafon, compass, matzpen, and conscience, matzpun, are all essentially the same word. Within Parashat Mishpatim and its system for governing a new society, we can discern a way to enable us to remain oriented to our own true north. What makes Mishpatim different from other legal systems is that the legal code, as Dominic noted when I was working with him, it was one of the first things you noticed, is fully intertwined with a set of values. So that is how I want to explore it this morning. 4 compass points, 4 cardinal values, which our ancestors needed at Mount Sinai and which we need now, especially when, like them, we feel like Moses went up there into the darkness and left us down here alone. Let's start with truth. Over and over again in this first book of law, our ancestors orient us towards the truth. We must not carry false rumors. Our weights and our measures must be even. Judges must not take bribes or be swayed by the financial status of the people who come to them for fair decisions. And uniquely in the Torah's language, believing in a false charge is not only prohibited, but we must actively distance ourselves from it. Midvar sheker tirchak, says the Torah, keep your distance from falsehood. Yet right now, all of us are under assault by disinformation. Our most basic understanding of what is going on around us is being undermined, and our attention is being polluted by distraction and by distortion and by lies. And we cannot control the flood of information. We just can't. But we have the power to commit and recommit ourselves to finding the truth. So we must collect our attention And we must choose trustworthy and reliable sources with which to nourish it. Instead of doom scrolling, we must research instead. We must fact check and fact check again. We can and we must take responsibility for what we consume and what we communicate. We must search out the truth. The second point of the compass is inclusion. Look at the breadth of the cast of characters in this first attempt after Sinai to set up a society. We have family here, and neighbors, and community with whom we are aligned and feel affinity. But as Dominic pointed out, the reintegration of a former slave into the wider community is the place where all of these rules begin. The stranger and the demand that we see and value and include the stranger shows up twice, and even our enemies get a place in the lineup. And all of this means that we have to take very great care about what we mean when we say us. We still have power over what we say and how we say it. We know that words create societies. We know how damaging the terminology of us and them can become, and so we must not fall victim to our preconceptions or our prejudices. And we all have preconceptions, and we all have prejudices. As all of the words around us are being weaponized more and more crudely, we must be scrupulous about how we express ourselves, and we must avoid facile words, and we must not succumb to clickbait. We might even dare to create new language to help dismantle the implied judgments that our words pass on each other and on ourselves. And only that way can we hold on to nuance, and only that way can we remain inclusive. And so to the third point of our internal compass. Compassion is not only an aspect of the Torah's legal system, it is integral to it. We must not abuse those who are already vulnerable. We must sustain the poor and the needy. We are forbidden to take away a cloak in pledge, because even if a debt is legitimately owed, we must not humiliate the debtor. We must remain open to their pain. These are the only rules in the system that are doubly enforced by divine oversight. If you do mistreat these people, says God, I will hear their outcry, and I will put you to the sword, and your own wives shall become widows, and your children orphans. The message couldn't be more clear. In all of this turmoil, we have to commit to remembering what compassion feels like and turn ourselves towards it. We must stretch our hearts, and then we must stretch them again. We must steady ourselves in dignity and engage our hands to help and reach out with kindness. If you haven't done so already, now is the time to pick one worthy cause that opens your heart, a cause that needs you, and support it regularly. Once a month, once a week. And if you lose focus on feeling compassion, talk to one of our 7th graders and ask them to tell you about the Tzedek projects that they presented last week. I promise that they will teach you how to rediscover your own compassion. And the 4th point of the compass. For that, we need to look at a scene from the Parsha, so I ask you to imagine it with me. Here is the person you hate the most in the world. He's overloaded his donkey with more than the poor animal can carry. It's fallen down, and it can't get up, and he's probably beating it. That's just typical. you think. I always knew that he was cruel, you think, and now he's proving it. Stands to reason that I hate him. But the Torah teaches that this is precisely the scene that we cannot walk past. We need to stop and unload the donkey with him, with our enemy, for two reasons. The first is that the donkey is suffering. Enemy or no enemy, we are forbidden to compound that suffering. We must intervene first and ask questions later, because the donkey didn't do anything wrong. And the second is that when we stand opposite our enemy, each of us cutting the ropes that attach the donkey to its burden, just like Ibn Ezra asks us to imagine, our eyes are going to meet. And maybe a nod will get exchanged, a grudging nod, and maybe it won't. But together, two human beings will have helped an innocent third party, because it's morally the right thing to do. So the fourth point of the compass is, don't make bad things worse. The Torah teaches that we have to limit the damage to our neighbor's field if we set fire to our own. We must cover up a pit we have dug so other people don't fall in. We are responsible for all of the consequences of our actions. And if we have created consequences that we never intended, then we must change course, because we must not make additional enemies out of the innocent. Remember, the donkey didn't do anything wrong. So there it is. Mishpatim, the rules given at Mount Sinai, teaching us this year how to govern ourselves, how to maintain our integrity, and how not to collapse under this experience. I want to point out that it did not go so well for our people at Sinai. While Moses was up the mountain receiving this very set of laws, they lost their faith and they built an idol. And I'm not so sure that we can blame them, because it is so easy to be shaken when we are fearful and when the world around us is chaotic. But we have to not follow their example. We must govern ourselves. We must remind ourselves that we still control our own consciences. We still hold, each of us, our own internal compass. And with that compass, we will navigate this landscape of moral injury. We commit to truth. We commit to inclusion. We commit to compassion. And we refuse to make bad things worse. Shabbat Shalom.